times. And over the years, I worked in the photo lab, I worked in different areas of the company, on and off site. During the 70s, I don't know the exact date, but I walked into the photo lab, one of the restricted areas. I did have a secret clearance, which I was not aware at the time. There were clearances higher than I had, because those clearances are supposed to be kept secret, that you have them. So I didn't know. I thought I had the top clearance. I walked into a restricted area, which was not my company. It was the NASA photo lab. And there they developed the film from the moon and satellite pictures, everything that's done by NASA. We were creating it as we went along. This day, that particular day, I walked into the photo lab in the restricted area, and this was between missions. One of the gentlemen I had been friends with, and I still talk to occasionally, he pointed my attention to one area of this mosaic. It was one panel of a mosaic, which are several panels put together to form a larger picture. And these were either, I believe they were satellite pictures. I'm not sure. They were aerial, looking down. And I said, this is really interesting. He explained everything. And then he, with a smile on his face, he said, look over there. And I looked, and in one of the photo panels, I saw a round white dot. And at the time, it was very crisp, very sharp lines on it. And I said to him, what is that? Is that a dot on the emulsion? And then he's grinning, and he says, dots on the emulsion don't leave round shadows on the ground. And there was a round shadow at the right angle, at the correct angle, the sun shining on the trees. I saw pine trees. I didn't see a coastline. I don't know where this was. But I looked at him, and I was pretty startled, because I'd worked out there several years and never seen anything like this, never heard of anything like this. And I said, is this a UFO? And he's smiling at me, and he says, I can't tell you that. I can't tell you that. What I knew he meant was, it was, but he couldn't tell me. So I said, what are you going to do with this information? And he said, well, we always have to airbrush them out before we sell them to the public. And I was just amazed that they had a protocol in place for getting rid of UFO pictures. So as a precaution, they were put in quarantine for a little while. This particular man was in quarantine with them and was part of their debriefing. He said that a lot of them talked about their experience in seeing these craft follow them. I believe there was 3 on the moon when they landed. And I think, and this is the best of my memory, that the code word was Santa Claus.
Houston, Apollo 8, over.
Hello, Apollo 8. Loud and clear.
Roger. Please be informed there is a Santa Claus.
That's affirmative. You're the best ones to know.
For these craft. And then some that wanted to talk were threatened. If they talk, they've signed papers not to talk. They have their retirements taken away. I was just overwhelmed with that piece of information, because I started asking questions. Certain people that I would know were key people in the organization. I'd take them away from the site. We'd go to lunch, and I'd talk to them. And alone, they would tell me things and then swear if I ever said they said it, they would say I was lying. One gentleman that I knew very well was in quarantine with some of the astronauts. He said just about every one of them has seen things when they went to the moon that were, and in fact, one said that they were there. Craft were on the moon at that time. And this man has disappeared off the face of the earth. I've tried to find him, but I have his name. I've given to Dr. Greer. I'm sure he can find him. But a lot of the astronauts are told to keep it quiet, and they're good Americans too. I mean, it comes under the guise of national security. That's just something that I feel over the years has been kept quiet, and how it's been kept quiet, I don't know. I have no idea. I asked guards, security guards. I ran into another security guard that was forced to burn a lot of UFO pictures, and he told me, he came into my office one day. This was when I worked at another job. He came into my office and he was very frightened. And he said, Donna, I heard you were interested in this subject. He said, I used to work out there. And one day, some soldiers came in the fatigues and had me burn pictures. And he said that he was burning them, and he was forced not to look at them. But he was tempted. He looked at one of them, and it was a UFO on the ground. Shortly thereafter, he was hit in the head with a gun butt, and he still had a scar on his forehead from that, being knocked out, because he looked at the picture. Now, this gentleman was terrified. He was scared out of his mind. And he also said that in the picture, it was a UFO with little bumps on it. It looked like it had just landed. It's very hard to know this. But again, I have talked, the people that know about it. And it's like a little underground. They'll come to me and talk to me in private. And they're afraid. Most of them are very afraid. And I guess I'm not afraid because I wasn't debriefed. There was a point in time I had some people come out and tell me I shouldn't talk about this. They didn't threaten to kill me, but I got the message I shouldn't talk about it. But I'd already talked about it so much it didn't really matter anymore to friends. And people either know it or they don't know it, or they're not sure. And like I said in the informal congressional hearing, I really started feeling like this topic was about like sex. Everybody knew about it, but nobody talked about it in mixed company. And that you knew about it, you would have like a friend. He was so terrified. He looked at me so frightened, like I'm going to tell her, and I wouldn't, because he hasn't told her. It would probably put him in jeopardy at this time, and I'm waiting for that to come public whenever there's a congressional hearing where he'll be protected, and he would be one of the ones that would probably not come willingly because he's very frightened. He was so scared that I was going to say something, and I have not. I don't want to hurt anyone, and I trust Dr. Greer. I feel he's done everything he said he would do as far as protection, secrecy of what I give him for now. I want it to come out when it's necessary and proper and it can do something. I don't want people that are trying to go around cleaning up their mess and getting rid of these people or hurting them or challenging them or making them so frightened they move away, like this one particular man I know of that has just disappeared off the face of the earth. He has disappeared. I just don't want that. I don't want them to. A lot of people have asked me, well, what senators were at this congressional hearing? Which witnesses do you know, and what are names? And I don't give that out in public. Greer has them locked up. It was very critical that we do this perfectly. We had also simulations before the mission that would generate what they expected the craft to do. The lights would, on the 10 by 20 foot screen in the control center, they would have these projected up there, and a light would go off going the pathway of the different. This is really one continual line, but it's done on different scales that we had to do. The light would continue on, and if the light varied, which represented real-time information coming back from the spacecraft. One of the things that I'm upset about is that good people are forced to do illegal things, and I believe that this information should be given to the American public. That's just something that I feel over the years.
Thank you, Carl. Good morning, everyone. My name is Donna Hare, and I worked at Ford Aerospace from 1967 to 1981. During that time, I was a design illustrator, draftsman. I did the launch slides and landing slides, and also projection plotting boards, lunar maps for NASA. We were a contractor, but most of the time I worked on site, in Building 8. I had the opportunity to do extra work during downtime, which was between missions, and I walked into a photo lab, which was the NASA lab across the hallway. I had a secret clearance, which is not that high, but I was able to go into restricted areas, which this was. At the time, I was talking to one of the techs in there, and he drew my attention to a photograph, a NASA photograph. It had a dot on it, and I said, "What is that?" Well, he drew my attention to it, and I said, "Is that a dot on the emulsion?" And he said, and he's smiling, and he has his hands crossed, and he said, round dots on the emulsion don't leave round shadows on the ground. And this was an aerial photograph of the Earth, I'm assuming the Earth because it had pine trees on it, and the shadows of the craft or whatever it was were in the same angle as the trees. And by its very nature, UFO, and I wanted to clarify that to a gentleman that was talking to me, means unidentified. So I did not know what this was. But I realized at this point that it's very secret, that it was kept secret, because I asked him, what are you going to do with this piece of information? And he said, we always airbrush these out before we sell them to the public. So they're pesky little creatures appearing on this photograph they wanted to get rid of. After that, I decided I would ask questions to other people that work there. And I found that I had to ask them away from the site and not on site. A guard told me that he was asked to burn some photographs and not to look at them. And there was a guard, another guard guarding him, who was in green fatigues, watching him burn the photographs. And he said he was too tempted. He looked at one, and it was a picture of a UFO, and he was very descriptive. I can go into that later with anyone. He immediately was hit in the head, and he had a big gash in his forehead. He was knocked out, and he's terrified, so he would have to be protected. Another incident, I knew someone in quarantine with the Apollo astronauts. He told me that the Apollo astronauts saw craft on the moon when we landed, and that is what he told me. And he also was afraid. He said that the astronauts are told to keep this quiet. They're not allowed to talk about it. So I do want to let you know that I worked out there for a number of years, and I ran into this. So it's not something everyone knows that works out there for a long time. My boss didn't know about it. Some people that sat right next to me didn't know about it. It's very strange, because I don't know how they can do it, but they can let some people know about it and then others not. I'm willing to testify before Congress that what I'm saying is true, and thank you very much.